You've probably eaten one today. In your cereal, your chocolate, your healthy snack, your milk that isn't even milk. The almond, totally normal, totally safe. Except for one disturbing fact, the almond was never supposed to exist. Its wild ancestor is a poison. Eat a small handful of the original almond, and it floods your body with cyanide and kills you. So how did a plant that murders you become the most popular nut on Earth? The answer is a genetic accident, and it almost never happened. Today, the almond is everywhere. We grow over 1 million tons of them every year. We crush them into milk, grind them into flour, melt them into marzipan, roast them, salt them, and pour them into protein bars, sold as the very picture of health. There are entire regions whose whole economy is almonds. Most people eat them without a single thought, which is exactly the problem, because nobody stops to ask the obvious question: where did this thing actually come from? Rewind thousands of years, before farms, before orchards. Out in the wild hills of the Middle East grew the almond's ancestor, a scrubby little tree with hard, bitter seeds. And those seeds were not a snack, they were a weapon. Bite into a wild almond and your mouth floods with an intense, ugly bitterness, your body screaming a warning at you. Because hidden inside that seed is a chemical called amygdalin, and amygdalin has a very nasty trick waiting for anything that chews it. The moment you crush or chew a wild almond, that amygdalin reacts and transforms into one of the fastest poisons known to man, hydrogen cyanide, the same cyanide used in execution chambers, the same cyanide spies once hid inside suicide pills. A wild almond is basically a tiny cyanide capsule with a shell around it. Eat a few dozen and a grown adult can die. For a small child, far fewer. This was never a food. It was a plant that had evolved very effectively to kill anything that tried to eat it. So here is the part that should stop you cold. Almost every plant we eat was tamed from a safe-ish wild version. But the almond? We somehow domesticated a tree whose seeds are loaded with cyanide. Think about how insane that is. Picture your ancestors, hungry, chewing these bitter seeds, and people around them dropping dead. Every instinct, every painful lesson screamed the same thing: do not eat this. And yet today you drop them into your smoothie without blinking. So what on earth changed? The answer is a mistake, a glitch. Somewhere out in those wild groves, on one tree out of thousands, a single gene quietly broke. That one broken gene switched off the tree's ability to make amygdalin, and so its seeds came out sweet, edible, harmless. It wasn't planned, nobody bred it. Nature simply rolled the dice millions of times, and once, by pure accident, it produced an almond that didn't fight back. One freak tree standing in an entire forest of poison. Now picture being the human who found it. You've spent your whole life knowing these bitter seeds mean death. Then one day you taste one from a particular tree, you brace for that ugly bitterness, and it's mild, gentle, almost pleasant. You wait to get sick, and you don't. That one tree, that one lucky mutation, was the jackpot, and some ancient person was clever enough or hungry enough to realize exactly what they were holding: a poison plant that had finally, accidentally turned safe. But there was a catch. If you simply plant the seeds of that sweet tree, you don't reliably get more sweet trees. The poison can come roaring back in the very next generation. So a single sweet almond tree is a one-off miracle that could vanish in one lifetime. To keep it, humans had to do something clever. They learned to copy the tree directly, cutting a living piece of the sweet one and growing it onto another. They were in effect cloning the accident, refusing to let that one lucky mutation die. And it worked. The almond became one of the very first trees humans ever domesticated, thousands of years ago, around the Eastern Mediterranean. From there it spread along the trade routes, into Greece, into Rome, across North Africa, and eventually around the entire planet. A plant that began as a local poison became a global crop. Every sweet almond alive today is in a sense a descendant of that tiny handful of accidental, non-lethal trees that our ancestors decided to gamble on. Here is a detail that will make you look at your fruit bowl differently. The almond has cousins, and they kept the family secret. The pits inside apricots, cherries, peaches, and plums all contain that same amygdalin. That is why you're warned never to crack open and eat apricot kernels by the handful. It is also why, for centuries, the smell of bitter almonds has been the classic warning sign of cyanide poisoning. The poison never actually left the family, we just bred one single member that learned to hide it. And the bitter, poisonous almond, it never disappeared. It is still grown on purpose today. Tiny, carefully controlled amounts of it give us that intense almond flavor in marzipan, in amaretto, in certain extracts. The flavor you love is literally a watered-down dose of the very same chemistry that can kill you. The line between delicious and deadly in an almond is simply how much of that poison is left switched on. We did not remove the danger from the almond, we just learned to measure it. Fast forward to now, and the accident has become an empire. A single region, California, grows the overwhelming majority of the entire world's almonds. Billions of dollars built on top of a Bronze Age genetic fluke. And to grow them at that scale, we do something almost unbelievable. Almond trees all need to be pollinated at once, across endless oceans of orchard. There are nowhere near enough wild bees for a job that big, so every single year, humans truck in billions of honeybees from across the country. It is the largest managed pollination event on the entire planet. Hives loaded onto trucks, driven thousands of miles, released into a sea of almond blossom for a few frantic weeks, then packed up and hauled somewhere else. An entire migratory bee economy now exists to service one crop that, a few thousand years ago, was a poison nobody could safely eat. That is how far one broken gene has traveled, from a death sentence in the wild to an industry that bends millions of living insects to its will. But cloning the accident hides a danger. Because so many of our almonds come from such a narrow, copied genetic line, they can be strangely fragile. A new disease, a shifting climate, a long thirsty drought, and a crop built on a single lucky fluke can start to wobble. We took a 1 in a million mutation and quietly bet an entire industry on it. It feeds millions of people every day. It also stands on a far thinner thread than the cheerful snack aisle would ever want you to realize. Step back, and the almond stops being a snack and becomes something far stranger, a monument to how human food actually works. We did not invent the almond, we found a freak, an error, a single tree where nature's poison machine just happened to jam. And then we spent thousands of years protecting that error, copying it, spreading it, and building whole economies on top of it. Honestly, half of what sits on your plate has a story like this. You are not eating nature. You are eating accidents we refuse to let go of. Which means the almond in your hand right now is the end of an unbroken chain. From a wild tree that would have poisoned your distant ancestor, through one impossible mutation, through the person brave enough to actually taste it, through thousands of years of careful copying, all the way down to a bag on a supermarket shelf with a cheerful little label. You are holding a tamed poison. What really gets me is that none of it was guaranteed. If that one gene had never broken, almonds simply would not exist as a food. No almond milk, no marzipan, no California empire, no armies of trucked-in bees. And if that one ancient person had spat out the sweet seed and walked away, the whole thing might have died in a single season. The world is quietly full of these forks, tiny accidents that secretly decided what billions of us would be eating thousands of years later. And the almond is far from alone. Corn was once a scrawny grass you would never even recognize. The carrot wasn't orange. Wild watermelons were bitter and pale and full of seeds. Over and over, humans stumbled onto mutations, mistakes, and freaks, and decided to keep them anyway. Most of your favorite foods are not gifts handed down by nature. They are accidents that we happen to notice, grabbed with both hands, and refuse to let die. The almond is just the one that started out as an actual poison. So the next time you grab a handful of almonds, hold one for just a second before you eat it. That small, boring, beige little seed is one broken gene away from being a cyanide pill. It is, quite literally, a domesticated weapon, a plant that spent millions of years learning how to kill, that we then rewired, through luck and sheer stubbornness, into a health food snack. Nature built it to protect itself. We hijacked the one accident that disarmed it, and then we calmly forgot the whole thing ever happened. Almonds were never meant to be food. We turned them into food by catching one mutation in a million and simply never letting go. And if one boring little beige nut hides a story this strange, imagine what is hiding in the rest of your kitchen. Stick around, because almost everything you eat was an accident once, and a few of them, like the almond, were actively trying to kill you. Hit subscribe, and next time I'll show you which of your favorite foods has the next disturbing secret.